How can you improve your metabolism by improving the diversity of your gut microbiome? I'm Dr. Rao, a physician with decades of experience helping clients reverse metabolic disease, studied nutrition at Harvard, founded healthgroupcoaching.com, and today I'll try to explain the gut microbiome to you in layman's terms and also at the end of the video describe practical steps on how you can improve the diversity of your gut microbiome to improve your metabolism. When we're trying to reduce weight, we need to be in a calorific deficit, which means that the amount of calories we take in needs to be less than the amount of calories we expend. The amount of calories you utilize in a day is your total daily energy expenditure. And this is made up of your basal metabolic rate, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your thermic effect of food, as well as exercise activity thermogenesis. As you can see on this chart here, your basal metabolic rate actually makes the biggest chunk of your total daily energy expenditure. And the biggest factors which have an effect on this, in addition to obvious ones like gender, your height, etc., include your muscle mass, your gut microbiome, metabolism, and also factors such as sleep, stress, as well as other hormonal factors such as puberty versus menopause, etc. So if you can enhance the diversity of a gut microbiome, you can improve your metabolism, and that will help in your weight loss attempts. Many of my clients who are consuming very few calories, and I have coached them on the proper way of counting their calories, weighing their food, making food from scratch. They are tracking on chronometer. I'm seeing their progress on a daily basis on the chronometer app. However, they're still not able to lose weight. They're not able to get into their calorific deficit. And in addition to activity levels, muscle mass levels, and other factors, the fact that because they've been consuming an unhealthy diet for decades, which has now led to their metabolic situation, their gut microbiome is dysbiotic, which comes in the way of the progress that we're trying to make. And so improving the diversity of a gut microbiome can be really important, along with other factors like managing sleep, managing stress, being active, exercising, and building muscle mass. As I say on the program, reversal of metabolic disease is possible, and it requires reduction in fat mass, particularly around the belly, increase in muscle mass, improvement in insulin sensitivity, optimization of the gut microbiome, and reduction of chronic systemic inflammation. And the 5 levers we pull to make these changes are a calorific deficit, resistance training, circadian meal timing or intermittent fasting, optimization of diet, and optimize of lifestyle, particularly with exercise, sleep management, and stress management. What exactly is the gut microbiome, you might be thinking? Well, it's the 38 trillion plus bacteria which live in our gut. These are bacteria which we have evolved with over millions of years, and many of our metabolic functions have been devolved to these bacteria. It's a bit like how a central or a government devolves many of its roles to private companies, gives them contracts, or how a company employs contractors who are not on the payroll to do their work. Similarly, over millions of years, we have evolved with these bacteria and they have taken over many of our metabolic roles. These gut bacteria break down dietary fiber into short-chain fatty acids like acetate, butyrate, propionate, which then go into the L cells of your intestine and lead to the production of beneficial chemicals like GLP-1, peptide YY, proglucagon, which has an effect on energy metabolism, sugar metabolism, lipid metabolism, inflammation, immunity, and cancer. In fact, many of the chemicals that you may have heard of, GLP-1 agonists include Ozempic, Wegovy. Serotonin agonists include antidepressants like Prozac. GABA agonists include painkillers like gabapentin. Histamine is mediator of allergies, including gut allergies and food intolerances. All these metabolites are mediated by the gut microbiome using fiber as well as protein, as you can see on this diagram, including tryptophan, histidine, glutamate, and cysteine. And these will improve your gut barrier function, reduce inflammation, reduce liver inflammation, improve energy metabolism, improve insulin sensitivity, and also have an effect on cognition and behavior. There have even been animal studies in which microbiome transplants were done, which not just showed a change in weight depending on where the microbiome came from, but even change in behavior based upon that. And that's because there is something called a gut-brain axis, and the gut microbiome connects directly with your brain using nerves such as the vagus nerve and can have an effect on your cognition, mood, and behavior. However, you can have a beneficial gut microbiome or a dysbiotic one. And if for decades you've been feeding it the wrong kind of foods, ultra-processed, refined sugars, saturated fats, then you will likely have a dysbiotic gut microbiome. And this will be one which in fact promotes an unhealthy lifestyle. A healthy gut microbiome can be beneficial for your health, but equally, an unhealthy microbiome can be detrimental for your health. There have been scientific studies which show that if your gut is colonized by those bacteria which feed off refined sugars and saturated fats, then they will send signals to your brain giving you urges to eat more of those foods because that is what they desire, that is what they thrive off. So it's important to understand that we are part of an ecosystem, and just like your lawn may be colonized by weed or colonized by flowers, depending on how well you looked after it, the same applies to your gut microbiome as well. But the good news is that there are dietary strategies to improve the diversity of your gut microbiome and make it a more favorable one for your metabolism. We divide the kind of dietary components you need for a good microbiome into prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics meaning those foods which your microbiome will feed off. And using that lawn analogy, that would be like fertilizer. It would be there to produce an ideal environment for those beneficial gut bacteria. And prebiotics are primarily insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is found primarily in plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables, whole intact grains like brown rice, steel-cut oats, millets, quinoa, whole grains, whole grain bread, seeds and nuts, lentils, legumes, beans, chickpeas, etc. The opposite of this would be refined sugars, which are detrimental for your gut microbiome. That includes white bread, white rice, cakes, croissants, pastries, mostly anything coming from a bakery, ultra-processed foods, white bread, white rice, etc. For a healthy gut-brain axis, omega-3 has been found to be beneficial. So when consuming fats, the most beneficial fats are fish, seafood, nuts and seeds, olives and avocados, while solid saturated fats such as butter, ghee, red meat, and deep-fried food encourage a dysbiotic or unhealthy gut microbiome. The next category of food is probiotics, and these are fermented foods which contain probiotic within them. These include fermented dairy such as kefir, paneer, yogurt, lassi, and other types of fermented foods including kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh. And I do encourage my clients to experiment with fermented foods from various cultures to get a good diversity within their gut bacteria. Intake of saturated solid fats like butter, ghee, red meat, and deep fried foods are associated with a dysbiotic gut microbiome. having dairy products which are high in saturated fats and not containing fermented probiotic, and these would include butter, ghee, and cow's milk, are less beneficial for the gut microbiome. The kind of chemicals and preservatives found within ultra-processed foods have been found to be damaging for the gut microbiome, and so an effort should be made to consume more whole foods, intact foods, the kind of foods that your grandmother would be able to recognize from the other side of the kitchen as much as possible. Foods which have been cooked at very high temperatures, and this would be deep fried food and deeply char grilled food, have also been found to increase inflammation within the gut. And so cooking techniques including steaming, baking, roasting, grilling, using an instant pot are preferable to deep frying or burning of food, as is often seen with fast food. There is also some evidence that a dysbiotic gut microbiome can lead to something called leaky gut, and this is due to the thinning of the mucus lining of the gut, which separates the immune cells within the gut from toxins and antigens within the gut. Bear in mind that your gut is the biggest exposure that your body gets to the external environment. While we also get exposure through our mucous membranes and also through our skin is a protective barrier. It is impenetrable, it is waterproof, it does not really soak in or get in contact with the environment. The same also applies to our mucous membranes. The tip of our nose, etc., is designed to protect us, is designed to keep germs and everything out. However, our gut is an area where we interact with our environment. So the biggest surface area of your body where you are exposed to the environment is your gut. And if the mucus lining, which separates the immune cells of your gut, and all of the external toxins and antigens that it is being exposed to becomes thinner, then that can also increase food intolerances, food allergies, symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, etc. And those clients who have a particular problem with gut issues and have not found as much benefit with all the dietary lifestyle changes that I enumerated on this video may also want to consider supplements. I would like to add here that it would be quite rare for anyone to have to use probiotic supplements around the year. I compare this to seeding your lawn. You do not need to lay seeds 12 months in a year. You could do this every few months. The more important part is to have fertile land, and that would be through your prebiotics, primarily insoluble fibers, plant proteins, and omega-3. On my website, if you go within Exploring Supplements and Blogs, I have written a blog on the top supplements and probiotics for gut health and metabolism, in which I do enumerate all the lifestyle changes that I mentioned on this video and make some recommendations for supplements. This is a green banana flour, which is a rich source of resistant starch, which is a type of fiber. This is something which could be added to your smoothies. Of course, you can also get resistant starch within whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, and nuts. You can also add Metabolism to your smoothies, and this is a soluble fiber. It has been shown to reduce cholesterol and reduce sugar. One concept which is interesting to understand is what happens in your proximal or small intestine and what happens in your distal or large intestine. Your small intestine or your proximal gut is where most of your nutrients are absorbed, including cholesterol and sugar. Your distal or large intestine is where most of your gut microbiome resides, and this is where metabolic processes like production of GLP-1 for weight control, production of serotonin for mood, histamine for allergies, and GABA for pain are mediated. So why is it that in modern times we have such a big problem with metabolism, obesity, metabolic disease? Well, when we eat unprocessed foods, which are high in fiber, have an intact food matrix, then they pass through your gut. Some nutrients are absorbed in the small intestine. However, a lot of it then goes into the large intestine. And this is where they feed your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome will use that fiber and ferment it, produce short chain fatty acids and those beneficial chemicals for our metabolism. However, if you are instead consuming refined, ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, then that food will not make it all the way to the distal colon. It will get completely absorbed in the small intestine because there isn't much food matrix, there isn't much fiber, there isn't much to be broken down. And while it is transiting through the gut, it gets fully absorbed within the small intestine. So you get all the calories, you get the sugar spike, you get the fat spike. However, you're not really sharing the food with the beneficial gut microbiome living in the distal colon, and they start becoming dysbiotic. Sometimes this situation is described as SIBO or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And basically what this means is that the client is consuming too much refined sugars, which are being primarily absorbed in the small intestine, not making their way to the large intestine because there isn't much whole unprocessed food there. And so the bacteria, which are of the unhealthy type, proliferate, and not only proliferate, they migrate from the distal colon to the proximal small intestine because that is where the nutrition is. And from here, they start sending signals to your brain, instructing you to consume more of those unhealthy foods, those processed and high refined sugar foods. And this then also leads to food intolerances, irritable bowel syndromes, symptoms, etc. And this is why an insoluble fiber, which means a fiber which will not become solute and will not get broken down, is something which passes on to your distal colon, to your large intestine, and feeds your gut microbiome, while a soluble fiber like Metamucil gets dissolved within the small intestine. But this is how it also helps reduce your sugar and your cholesterol, because those are nutrients which get absorbed within the small intestine, and by producing this cellulose kind of a net, the Metamucil traps the sugar and cholesterol and doesn't allow for those nutrients to get absorbed. So the same concept which differentiates soluble fiber with insoluble fiber also differentiates ultra-processed refined sugars from unprocessed foods and high fiber foods, because the ultra-processed refined sugars are being metabolized in the small intestine proximal gut, while the high fiber intact food matrix foods are making their way to the distal large intestine, where they feed your healthy gut microbiome, which in turn helps with management of weight, sugar metabolism, inflammation, immunity, cancer, etc. There are certain probiotics which have shown certain benefits, and I have included them on my blog, and the Amazon links can be found within the blog itself. This probiotic, for example, has been shown to reduce cholesterol, and I have included the relevant studies within the blog itself, which you may want to check out if you would like. These probiotics have demonstrated benefit for weight loss. This probiotic has shown benefit for metabolism and fatty liver. This high potency probiotic has also shown benefit for irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, fatty liver, and also for babies with gut issues. While this symbiotic, they call it, because it contains a prebiotic as well as a probiotic, has also been demonstrated to show benefit for irritable bowel syndrome, chronic vaginal symptoms like bacterial vaginosis or recurrent thrush, as well as children with gut issues like colic. Of course, if your diet does not contain enough plant protein or omega-3, these things can be supplemented as well. In addition to what you eat, how often you eat can also make a difference. And this was a study which demonstrated that intermittent fasting, so having a nice gap between your dinner and breakfast, encouraged a more beneficial gut microbiome. I hope you found the video useful. I know we covered a lot of content on this video. If you would like a recap of all of this, you can always go on my website and my blog. I coach on the reversal of metabolic diseases. These include fatty liver, diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance, polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic syndrome, which is a combination of raised waist circumference, raised triglycerides, and a low HDL, obstructive sleep apnea, which is snoring with breathing pauses, and hypertension, prehypertension, raised blood pressure. If you would like to join the program, then you can click on subscribe on the program. If you know anyone who suffers from gut issues or has what they feel is a broken metabolism, then do share this video with them, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd like to watch more videos on how to reverse metabolic conditions, then you click on those videos and I'll see you there. Until then, take care.